I'm going to take you step by step through my in-parent pose setup. I love doing this with parents because it really shows the size of the baby in comparison to their hands. I mean, and they grow so fast, so it's an incredible way to incorporate them in the session. And if you've got a parent that doesn't necessarily want to have their photograph taken, this is a great option to get them involved because they can then look back and go, wow, look how small they were. So I do it on my posing bag. This is definitely a setup that we do to create an illusion. I prefer to do it with a black fabric because it's nice and easy, and it creates a beautiful moody look when it comes to incorporating parent hands. So you can see that my posing bag is nice and flat at the moment. I've got my light source coming in straight on towards me. So what I normally do is position the parent sitting on the floor if they're comfortable on the floor, and it depends on obviously how flexible the parent is. And I'm sitting here quite comfortably with my legs crossed, but not every parent can do that, so it's important to understand that. So I have them face the lighting, and the reason that I do that is that when they've got the baby in their hands like that, the light is coming down across the baby, almost like the parent is holding the baby up towards that light. So what I do is I push all the beans in my posing bag down at this end where the parent's going to be sitting, so I create a bit of height there and I create a slope, and then that way when the baby's on a slope it can fall gently and rest in the parent's hand, so it makes it a lot easier to position the baby. Plus it also makes it a lot easier for the parent. So we've got our fake baby here who is going to be great at demonstrating this, because as you know, when you're working with real babies, they don't often give you the grace of being able to explain every single little detail, even though we're going to go into lots of detail when we are working with a real baby. So I have the parents sitting comfortably on the floor in however position that they like. What I like to tell them is to bring one leg out to the side and just tuck the other leg in as comfortably as they can. A great thing to offer them is one of your towels to stick underneath that ankle, because that ankle bone on the hard floor with the weight of the posing bag and their baby after a period of time can become quite uncomfortable. So it's always looking out for their comfort, and that's going to help them relax throughout this setup. So I grab my posing bag and I lift it up. It's very light. I lift it up and I just bring it over the top of that leg so it's nice and close to their body. And we get them to push down with their elbows to create that height for the baby. So you can see there how easy it is just to push those beans out of the way. Now, another thing I like to do is to create some support as to where the baby's going to be. So we get them to put their elbows in, and then I can gauge roughly where the baby's going to be positioned. So I'm going to put a support here where the baby's bottom's going to be, and then a support here where the baby's head's going to be. So I'll grab a couple more of my towels. This is going to help keep the baby into position. So I've just folded that underneath. This is where the bottom is going to be. Right up underneath all those blankets and layers. And that is where the head is going to be. So there's a little bit of a distance. I can fit my hand comfortably in between those two supports. And I'm just going to push down for where that baby is going to rest. So when you bring your parents' elbows together, what I like to say is just, I want you to bring your elbows comfortably together and then your wrists. You know, not everybody can do this, and you'll notice that some dads' elbows come apart. That's okay. You don't have to get the entire forearm in the shot, but just try and get them to bring their hands together like that. And then when they bring their elbows forward to rest on the bag, I get them just to bring their hands down. Now it can be quite natural for parents to do this, but when that happens is they fall behind the baby and you can no longer see their hands. So it's important for their hands to stay out like this. So I can now feel those two supports, and then there's that little bit of a well there in the middle, which is where our baby's going to be. So with our fake baby, cross her little legs over. I'm going to put her on her side like this, and then we're going to turn her head back towards us and bring our elbows in and our hands like this. Now her back doesn't arch, curve around as much as ours does, but it's enough to demonstrate how we do this. And this is how they position in our hands. So the other thing that I'm looking for here is that there is always going to be connection between the baby's head and the hands, because if the head is up higher and the hands are down here, we're losing that illusion, because we know that a baby's head is not going to sit up like that if it's not supported. So to make it seem more realistic and more comfortable for the baby, we bring the head around so that it's got connection to those fingers and hands, and we can hold them into position. Now where you place the little legs and hands, now where you place the little legs and hands is entirely up to you, but it's all about, creating that illusion, which is what we're looking for. You can see that the light is coming down across the baby's face, gently creating some shadows down here, and that's exactly what we want. It's not coming directly above the forehead, and it's not coming up underneath the nose. So thinking about that in advance is really important. So when I get ready to take my shot, what I ask my parents to do is, that they're nice and relaxed, sitting here forward like this, is I come and stand directly behind them, and then on the count of 3, once I've got my exposure right, I ask my client to just lean slightly towards the left or the right. I go 1, 2, 3, just lean your body, keeping your elbows in place, and as they do that, I can take my shot and then they can come directly back. So when I'm looking for that composition, because we're on an angle, I'm making sure that obviously my perspective is right, but when I'm framing it, I'm shooting from as far down towards the elbow as possible, and then I am also leaving some space above the baby so that you're not constraining them by cropping it too tightly. So I would be framing and shooting this in landscape, and the bottom of my frame would be as close as possible to the elbow, and then I'd be capturing about that much background behind the baby so that there's a little bit of space behind them. And then you can, in Photoshop, quite easily tone down all of those blacks and make it look like the baby is being held up towards that light.